Hello everyone, this is Panda. So, last night I took out the DJI Osmo 4 SE gimbal out for a little live stream without any receiver connected to the iPhone. Instead, I used the iPhone itself in the magnetic bracket in the outer box for my iPhone. Now, keep in mind, I know there's a few things that you may not want to use your outer box or your phone protection while you're using the DJI Osmo 4 SE gimbal, while you should take it off and then just use the magnetic bracket to actually clamp down on the phone properly. And the reason why I also want to demonstrate is because if you can look right there, it's not center. So be warned that this will off-center the balance on the gimbal, and this is why we've been having some issues with the gimbal being very, very unstable with a receiver at the other end. So last night I took out the DJI Osmo 4 gimbal. Now I am comparing it to the MOZA AirCross 2 gimbal, which I've been using lately to do the live streams on the iPhone. This is a much robust, heavy-duty, more expensive, but also does the job for either smartphone, DSLR camera, and even a cinema camera. But I digress. But we want to move on to stabilization. Why I think the Osmos Crosshair 2 has better stabilization, even though it's super overkill compared to something that's supposed to be easy. Like the DJI Osmo 4, which in theory, like, this is supposed to be easy. This fits on the phone, but the problem is stabilization. And here is why I want to talk to DJI about the motors for this particular gimbal. And I know I have said this before about the DJI Osmo 3 versus the 4 and 4 SE. This is the 4 SE. I just think the motors on this SE is weaker than the 3s because the 3's motors were much stronger, robust, and not only that, it can handle the receiver, which it did before many, many times. It had no issues with it. But with the 4, I'm having stabilization issues. I'm having problems where when I'm actually, let me just take this off and put this correctly on. So this is not supposed to fit on correctly. Oh, my Panda. But the problem with this gimbal is that if you put any extra load like this, so this here is a 2-set piece iPhone extender. Now, you can find these on Amazon, but make sure they are MFI certified. So, yeah, if it's not an Apple-approved product, then don't use it because it's going to damage the ports on your iPhones. But I use this to connect to this because of the outer box or the screen protector is surrounding the port. So I need this to do this, right? And sometimes I don't need this because this is not the phone I'm using to do all the live streams on, but to demonstrate. Now, if I had the receiver connected just like this, it would be a much more stable platform. Everything's together. There's no space between. And you got to think about it physically, that this is maybe causing the instabilization when doing live streams. But problem with this is that the motors are not strong enough. It's not built to withstand even the slightest vibration. If you run, you can see the jitter, the heavy it's not heavy micro jitter. You can see the big jitter effect when using the gimbal if you're running, comparing it to the big boy, the Osmo AirCross 2. But here is my conclusions on both of the gimbals. So I am going to get rid of one and keep one. So I am going to keep the Crosshair 2. And I am going to get rid of the DJI. I know you guys may say, why are you getting rid of it, even though you know the flaws, you know the mistakes. You know that we can't use protections with the clamp or the magnetic clamp because in reality, you can see where it's not even centered at all. It's off-center. So you got to play with this as well. You got to make sure that you clamp this correctly onto it. And this is also causing more weight. So that has a limit of 210 grams, if I'm not mistaken. So 220 grams the DJI Osmos can fit more than 220 grams. I didn't understand why is this limit to a certain amount of grams. And honestly, the iPhone 11 Pro Max is a big camera, but it is much heavier on one side than it's supposed to be on another, because some of the components inside the iPhone, it's heavier on one side of the phone. So you do have to like really play with this on the phone, move this up and down till you get it right where it's balanced and center. Now right now, this is not balanced. You can tell that's not balanced. And even if I turn this on, see, it's having a difficult time trying to tune itself. Now it's slanting on one side, then you know it's not properly balanced. So we're gonna turn this off. And that's the problem with this gimbal. You gotta play with it and you gotta keep taking off your phone screen protectors, and that's not something that I'm willing to do for my iPhone, especially when my iPhone costs more than the gimbal, and I should be able to protect my phone from the elements or any accidental drops. But you cannot physically use the clamp with your protective shield over your phone, because it also offsets the balance as well. So yeah, that's another issue. And as I said before, you have to buy one of these if you want to use a professional audio wireless microphone with the gimbal. And even if that, this is what happens. When you're using the gimbal, you're going to see the micro jitters. You're going to see the micro jitters. You're going to see it in the footage if you're doing live streams. But last night, we did not use the wireless system, which is right here, which is the Comic-Con Boom X8. We did not use that. Instead, we just used the phone's audio directly from the phone, and I noticed a few things. The stabilization and the micro jitters went away by 70%. And I really dissected and looked at the video last night and compared it to the Crosshair 2 video, and they look identical. Stabilization-wise, yes, so this is not a bad gimbal. You just cannot put external kits or wireless adapters on it. And even if they do have a, what is that thread? Can anyone tell me what that thread is? Because I know that's supposed to hold the weights. There's no point of putting weights on it if the motor cannot handle the weight. So that's one of my biggest concerns. Battery life is not an issue. This thing, the DJI Osmos, I do not charge it every day, maybe every 4-6 days. Yeah, I'm literally charging it every 6 days. So battery life is amazing. But battery life on the MOZA Air with the iPhone, let me compare it to apples and oranges here. The Crosshair with a DSLR camera, the gimbal lasts about 4 to 5 hours, 6 hours tops, right? But with the iPhone, it can last all day, throughout the day, but you still have to charge it at the end of the day. So I'm not really complaining about the Crosshair being such difficult to assemble, because that's the downside to this gimbal. It's a more robust professional gimbal, but you got to assemble it by using the L bracket, taking the L bracket, right? Then you got to mount a phone bracket onto this. Then you got to balance it correctly each and every single time, and that's the downsides of having the Pro gimbal versus the beginner gimbal, because this is just toys. This is just child's play. This is for the big boys and big girls, you know. But this is child's play. This is easier. It's more fundamental. But DJI doesn't tell you what the fundamental flaws, why you should not use an auto box or a phone protector with the clamp. And you can see right here, there's a gap. I'm not sure. Look at this, guys. Do you see that? That's a gap. That's not supposed to happen. This is why you're not supposed to use the phone protector with the clamp, because that is the problem. It's supposed to be snug. It's supposed to be tight around the whole frame of the phone, so it has a good grip. That's not a good grip. You can see on both ends. Not a very good grip. So this is why you got to take off this protection. But with the DJI the Crosshair, you don't have to do that, because I'm using a special bracket from Sunway Photo. They sent me out this bracket. But yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to stick with this, not use these gimmick mobile gimbals anymore, because honestly, like, I'm always messing with this or the other gimbals that I have. But with that said, everyone, the only issues I have is just assemble this gimbal. It takes some time. It takes about 15-20 minutes to get this up and running. Depends how fast you know how to balance it, because if you're balancing with other accessories like I am using the wireless receiver for my iPhone 11 Pro Max, yeah, you gotta offset it and you gotta actually maybe add some weights. So it's always good to buy weights. These are the small rigs 100-gram weights that I have. Yeah, these are outstanding. These are perfect. So I use these from time to time, even with the DSLR cameras with the bigger lenses. Yes, I use these. These were about $24 from B&H. Actually, no, I got them from $18 used from B&H, but they came in a brand new box. So yes, everything here that I got is from B&H. So, and then I had this for about what, 2 months now, almost about 2 months. So giving this my 2-month, 60-day review on both of the gimbals. At first, this gimbal was giving me problems with DSLR cameras, but I figured out a little system of mine that I can fine-tune and practice on balancing this. And then this one was giving me problems when I didn't like it when doing live streams, especially with the wireless system. So for now on, we're going to probably, until the time being, until we get rid of it, for the time being, we're just not going to use the wireless audio system, which is a downside, because I want you guys to hear me directly. I don't want you to hear the noise in the background, or I know you guys want to pay attention to what's going on in the city or where I am, but the commentary is more important, and the person that's doing the video is more important than what is going on surroundingly. But I can always inform you what is going on surroundingly. But this is why I want to use a wireless microphone system, because it just makes sense, because the audio is like 50% of your audience and the rest is just the content itself. So yeah, but with that said, everyone, DJI, I don't disapprove of the gimbal. I just think you miscalculated by the motor strength on the gimbal. To be honest, it just is not strong enough to either hold the iPhone 11 Pro Max with the extender with the wireless receiver. Which, guys, this thing doesn't weigh that much. It actually doesn't weigh at all. This is so light. This here is very light, and it just can't balance it with this attached. Yeah, that's how easy it is. So if you guys want some mobile tips, I recommend buying one of these wireless systems. If you're using a big gimbal or a stronger gimbal, if you're using DJI Osmo 3 gimbal, you have no problem with using this on that gimbal, because that gimbal is much better when it comes down to strength, robust, and the body structure is much more stronger. This one feels like a toy. Literally, I feel like I'm going to break it. But with that said, everyone, yeah, so with that, and I can always monitor my audio just in case I want to get my volumes at a certain level. So there's only 4 volumes on this receiver, so you may want it at 2, you may want it at 3, so you want to maybe you want it at the highest, which is 4, but you both have different channels, A and B. So this is why it's like, this should be not a problem for that, right? But it is a problem for it, because once you put it on there, and you try to balance this, you gotta like move your phone over to make sure it's balanced, and you gotta play with it all the time. It's just a nuisance, and look, and this is what happens next. It's too close to the bottom, so kind of blocks, and you're gonna see these micro jitters, just like this, when you're doing live streams. You see how it sticks out way too far from the phone? That's what causes the offset of the weight, and the motors are trying to struggle. And I noticed that the motors do get a little bit too warm for my comfort when using this system on my iPhone 11 Pro Max. When I used to use it, well, I never actually used this phone on this gimbal. I used the Max, but it just something really weird about it, and this mounting bracket is not even clapped on around the phone correctly. So this could pop off at any time, and your phone could drop out, especially if you're running. This is why I said earlier, you should not use your phone protection or your outer box with the clamp, because it's not going to fit properly. It's not going to grip it properly, and your phone might just pop out of the bracket or the magnetic bracket. So be careful with that. That's a very dangerous feature with the gimbal. I wish DJI would have explained that to everybody about certain things you should not use with our gimbal, and I think they should have made it clear, but I'm making it clear why you should not do it. But this is Panda. Subscribe, like, and share if you guys want to support the channel. There is a way to do that. There's a PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. Just make sure you go to the Pateron page, you go to the Twitter, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, and everything else. But with that said, everyone, this is about gimbals. This is my 30-day assessment on the DJI Osmo 4 SE gimbal and my MOZA AirCross Crosshair 2. And which one I think is better for me is the Crosshair 2, because you know, I'm a big boy, and big boys want to play with big toys. But with that said, but overall, it's a better gimbal. It takes longer, but very great. But with that said, everyone, see ya.